This has been a topic of great interest, not only to myself, but a lot of readers, listeners of Profluence. This franchising, pickleball, you're the mixture of both. So excited to hear your insights and dive a little bit deeper into this today.
Glad to be here, Andrew. Like I told you offline, big fan of your show. I think you're doing a great job aggregating the data in the sport. So I'm happy to be here and share some information.
Awesome. So I guess start us off, who are you? What was your background? What then led you to this awesome opportunity in pickleball and sort of the unique model you've taken in it?
Yeah, I sort of got into pickleball, Andrew, begrudgingly in a sense. Bunch of my neighbors, this is during COVID, kind of at the tail end of COVID, they got into this thing, and I felt like there was this inside joke that everyone was in on except me, because I didn't understand how they started doing something and overnight they're doing it like 5 times a week. It was kind of crazy. And pickleball is the only thing I knew was, isn't that old man sport? Like retired people do that. And they invited me and I said, okay, I saw some pictures. What is that? Is that a tennis ball? Is that like a racquetball? They said it's a pickleball. I said, I know. What's a pickleball? Ace, it's kind of a wiffle ball. Andrew, I said, I'm out. I take sports seriously. I'm like hyper competitive. I hear wiffle ball. I think backyard, picnicky, not interested. Thank goodness they kept inviting me. It was a Tuesday night. I think I hadn't walked out my front door in like 3 days. And so I said, babe, I'm going to go meet the guys. What are you guys doing? I said, I don't know. Something they got into. 5 minutes on the court. True story. I raised my paddle and said, this is the greatest sport ever. And I've been hooked ever since. I became a super spreader, not of COVID, but of pickleball. I would get like 15, 20 guys to show up, whiteboard, just a little tournament just to have fun. And the fourth time I did it, January 9th, 2021, I'm saying there's something to this sport. I heard retired sport. That's not the case. I'm seeing old, young, every ethnicity, male, female. I'm seeing all body types, former athletes. I was a Division I quarterback a million years ago. My body's broken up, can't do certain things. I can do pickleball. I'm seeing people who are self-professed. I wasn't an athlete 20 years and 20 pounds ago who are loving it and getting good. And so I said, this is for everyone. But I did it now enough to see the downside. You can't reserve a court. Outdoors, it's hot, it's cold, windy. That's the killer of the sport. In dirty courts, 10,000 other people, Andrew, had the idea of doing this indoors before I did. That's not the big idea. The big idea is, how do you actually execute that? And then lastly, once you have a plan together, do you pull the trigger? When at that time, it wasn't a proven concept, gigantic risk, best decision I've ever made, though, from a business standpoint.
Yeah, and in diving into that business perspective, how'd you go about the first one, right? Because we can get into, I think it's like 300 some plus locations now, at least sold or going to be franchised, but it starts somewhere. Where did you even begin once you're like, all right, this is the big thing I'm jumping into?
Yeah. So standing on that court that day, January 9th, 2021, it's the old what if, right? And I've been an entrepreneur, Andrew, for 30 years. Never in this space. I was typically in business to business, financial services, raising money for startups, launching companies publicly. That was kind of what I did. And so this was very different. But like, if you're an athlete and you say I never played pickleball, but you're a good baseball player, used to play hockey, I'm going to say, look, those talents and skills will translate very well. That's the way I look at business. To me, business is sports minus the ball. So I just looked at the concepts that were needed and started breaking it down. The what if this happened? What would that look like? And then you scratch your own itch. I can't afford to come to courts and wait 45 minutes to get on, play for 15 minutes, get off and get back in line. That's just a waste of my time. I'm not a germaphobe, but whatever is one step below germaphobe, that's where I exist. And being on these outdoor public courts would drive me crazy. So how can we have a better experience? So I just started thinking that through logistically, started putting some numbers together, put some pro formas together. And Andrew, to some degree, it felt like throwing darts on a wall because I had no real data outside of sort of common sense guesstimates. And a year and 2 months later, we opened 38,000 square foot location here in Chandler. And I was planning to not franchise. I was planning to franchise from day one. I just wasn't planning to do it for probably 2 to 3 years. I wanted to open 5 here in Arizona first. But the market spoke to me and I had to listen. People were literally pounding down the doors. How much for a franchise? When are you going to expand? And all these things. So about a year after we launched the club, June of last year, we were able to offer franchises. And right now we're just over a year. Andrew, we have over 350 franchises sold and awarded. And that number's growing by the week. So it's God's math for sure. Very blessed.
Yeah, and give us a little bit more on the franchise model. What does that look like from the business for people that want to get into the franchising game? Because obviously, and actually, if you can go back one step and just explain franchising for anyone that might not know, or we are all familiar, but we don't. A lot of people don't really know the actual nuts and bolts of it.
Right. Okay. So if we start with the most basic thing that everyone knows, everyone drives by the Golden Arches, right? So if I wanted to get into the burger business and I open up Ace's Burger Hut, you would drive by my location, the sign would never even catch your attention. But if I open the McDonald's, you're driving by and all of a sudden, I didn't think I was hungry, but maybe I should do a U-turn and pick up a quarter pounder, so it's that having that brand awareness. You're not having to worry, what's my color scheme going to look like? What's my menu? How do I charge? Where do I get my food and napkins and everything else? So you're buying a pre-packaged business. So what you're really doing, Andrew, is you're saying, hey, franchisor, you already got a business model that I want in on. I'm an entrepreneur, but I want to just run fast and not have to go all over the place to figure everything out. That's why people get into a franchise. If someone says, no, I'm a tinkerer, I want to figure out every detail, by all means, you need to start your own brand. But that's going out into the wilderness, right? With no safety net there. And if they succeed, it's going to be awesome. But that's where, a lot of entrepreneurs are left by the wayside. So I'm looking for guys that want to be on an adventure. They want to get in on a movement on the ground floor and have a proven track record and be with a brand that has by far the highest revenues, publicly announced revenues of any brand out there.
So how'd you go about your first one? Because you used a comparison, but you got to start at one. What was that learning journey like, beginning at the first one for you, and then as you expand it out?
Yeah, so I tell people and anyone who's going to listen, Andrew, I always say I'm the most blessed man on the planet because I feel like everything I've done, from playing football to being in financial services as a salesperson, then starting a business, then having 300 brokers in my business, then being in the energy efficiency business, being the chairman of the board of a school, all these things, every single aspect that I've done that succeeded. And Andrew, everything I've done that's failed, and I've had many failures in my life, they've all played into me building this now. And so I'm going to tell you, I made quite a bit of mistakes early on with this club. But what I tell our franchisees is that those mistakes were on my dime. So they're paying for the education I've already developed versus paying for my education. They're paying for the results. So again, I think I was very proactive and very intentional. No matter how good you are when you're out in the unknown, you're going to take some missteps. And we did, course corrected. Because I knew we were going to franchise from day one, we documented everything. So we now have a 150-page operations manual that we call Keys to the Kingdom. We have an intensive 1-week training class that franchisees come to. So they really get up and operational on everything they need before they're opening their club.
From a location standpoint, I'm sure this is a big real estate play as well. How do you think through that? How do you manage, pick out land? I'm sure that's maybe one of the biggest, I don't want to call red tape, but biggest hurdles to overcome as you're getting
Right.
some of these off the ground, especially in more highly densely populated areas.
Yeah, you're right, Andrew. It's a huge stumbling block that I think a lot of other brands have maybe stumbled into, and some brands are trying to handle that internally. Again, I go back to a word I used earlier. I think we've been very intentional in knowing what we do well, and then also what needs to get done that we should sort of offload or bring in experts for and not try to do it ourselves. That's one of them. Real estate is a different animal in and of itself. And if we're doing our internal kind of brokerage house, now we're competing against every real estate brokerage house in America. And that makes no sense to me. I'm not in that play, but other people are. So we had pretty much every big national player approached us, and we had conversations. And there's a company out there, Morrow Hill. They're one of the big players nationally. They do, I believe, on average, like 1,500 leases a year. So again, they're huge, specializing in big box. And they approached us and, gave us the pitch. And it was the same pitch I heard from everyone. We're going to know your model, yada, 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 find places, present it, your franchisee chooses. But then they said something different, Andrew. They said, Ace, we're also going to contact every location that could be a Pickleball Kingdom, whether it's on the market or not. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, that's different. I haven't heard that part of the song before. Tell me more about that. Why would you contact a place that's not on the market? Well, now it's obvious, right? They said, because you never know when there's a deal to be had. When a leasee is behind on his lease and wants to get out, but the landlord's not letting him out. But now if there's this, a sublet opportunity, who knows? Maybe they want to sell. I'm like, okay, that's different. Signed an exclusive relationship. They can't represent any other pickleball organization besides us. Andrew, they have been fantastic. So the moment we get a franchisee, we connect them to Morrow Hill. They have a dedicated team that does strictly Pickleball Kingdom business, and they're out there scouring, taking them on tours, and then the franchisee chooses. So you're right. That's a huge issue, and I feel like we've navigated that pretty well.
So what's a typical site look like? And I don't know how many you have live now. And you said 350 total. I'm sure you're up into the, you're getting up there even in the ones actually, people coming every day. Curious what typical one looks like, number of courts, what else is included, added, how they run, what else is beyond just playing.
Yeah. So let's start from the bare bones. The typical space that we're getting into is usually an anchor store of a strip mall, so it's an old grocery store or the old boxes, right? The Bed Bath and Beyonds, Best Buys, those types of things. We do also have a couple of ground up builds. Those take a little longer, great ROI on that over time if someone has a capital up front, but that's sort of a different thing. So we start with that. Demo the place, build it back out. So we have a footprint for it where all of our locations obviously have outdoor surfaces that everyone knows and loves, but indoors with all the indoor benefits, right? Took away the sun, wind, rain, hot, cold, all of that. All our courts are individually fenced. And so many brands right now, for their reasons, have chosen not to enclose courts where they're just kind of fenced, but there's gaps. I don't know how often you play, Andrew, but my biggest pet peeve, you're playing and you're about to score or something, that ball from another court rolls, ball, and you miss the point now. And, it seems like it happens every couple of minutes. So all of ours are individually enclosed. All of our facilities has either a mezzanine or at least an elevated viewing area. So people who are waiting or watching have a great view of the entire kingdom that they're in. Locker room showers, a party room for events. We're big on corporate events, birthday parties, that type of thing. We have music playing throughout. We have a pro shop that we offer paddles. We do paddle demo programs and a snack bar. I'm very excited to announce, hopefully here in the next week or two, once we finalize a deal with a major, major player that everyone knows, that probably all your listeners do business with on a weekly or every other week basis, that they want to have a sort of vending, selling kiosk in our locations, that we're going to be able to offer a lot of snacks and balls and quick grab items.
From a software perspective, external, all internal, what's that look like? Do you have cameras watching games, or, where do you plan to go as we see the sports and entertainment sort of intertwine with technology more and more every day?
Yeah, the beauty is, Andrew, so many people out there are wanting to get into the pickleball business, and they're trying to become the iPhone, if you will, which is great. So they're trying to be the cool product, the leader in their lane. So whether they're a paddle manufacturer, a video provider, or whatever manufacturer, and I said this, I think 2 years ago on an interview with Franchise Magazine, that I'm trying to build Pickleball Kingdom to be the Amazon of pickleball. So we're the conduit. So we can everything funnel through us. So we're not trying to be everything to everybody, but we're trying to offer most of those services, whether we're the end provider or not. So the video thing that you just brought up, we partnered with PlaySite. Again, they're the iPhone of that space. That's what they do. So our facilities will have, if not all the courts, at least some of the courts decked out with these cameras that you could then download. Hey, that was a phenomenal shot, Andrew. Let's get that clip, so you can put on your highlight reel or post it, whatever you want to do. So we have that. Same with paddles. We have relationships with almost every major brand. So we're able to carry their stuff. So again, we're just trying to leverage other people's strengths, and we remind ourselves what our strengths are, and we try to stay within that.
I like that. Yeah. And that's somewhat even the approach on our side, right? Can you aggregate all the best stuff and everything come through you? From a pickleball as a whole, macro now, obviously you've been in it a few years. We've all seen the growth. Where do you see that space going? What interests you? What excites you? And maybe what even scares you a little bit of pickleball as a whole industry?
Yeah, great question. I do feel like, Andrew, I am sort of a pickleball ambassador or evangelist, because I want to pound the table to tell everyone, I think we're the only brand out there that was built on values up front. I actually wrote out 5 values that we're going to mesh everything through. And one of them, point number 3, is pickleball. We believe pickleball is good for you physically, socially, and spiritually. So I think it's the great provider for people to get that mental and physical well-being. People have asked, and my wife, when I first talked to her about the idea, and both my wife and I are originally from Hawaii, and when we were in our late teens to early 20s, racquetball exploded in Hawaii like it did everywhere nationally. And all of a sudden, there were these racquetball clubs that popped up everywhere. And then 3 to 5 years later, as fast as they popped up, they all shut down and got turned into grocery stores and other things. So, fair question. She said, babe, is pickleball racquetball? Is it sort of that flavor of the month right now? And again, fair question. I said, babe, I honestly believe that's not the case. And I am emphatic about it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I said, think about racquetball. I played football at the University of Hawaii when we met. My wife ran cross country for them. So we're 2 Division I athletes. We've now been married for 32 years. So this conversation is about 3 years ago. We'd been married for 29 years at that time. We had never played sports together because there just wasn't any commonality. Things she wants to do, I can't, vice versa. And so when we first started dating and I was a member of one of these racquetball places, I took her like twice, and she was absolutely positively don't want to do it. Ball moves too fast. It's too intense. And she's a Division I athlete, not some prissy girl, And so that was point number 1. Point number 2, I said, look at me. You can't make a game or a sport more competitive than where I want to play and all that. But if someone told me today, hey, Ace, let's start playing racquetball, I'm going to probably decline. Maybe I'll do it once. Let's play every week. Nope, not going to do it. I just can't afford more sprained ankles and, welts in the back of my thigh, just those kind of things. Whereas in pickleball, you could literally do it your entire life. We have people literally 80 years old that are playing at our club. And a lot of times they're playing with their grandchild who's 4 or 5 years old. There's no active sport that can boast that kind of involvement with everyone. So I think we're at the beginning of the beginning. This is a tsunami coming. It has already affected American pop culture and the rest of the world. I think families, organizations are going to kind of pull into it. My wife and I got back about a week and a half ago from Paris for the Olympics. We had a great time. There's so much buzz right now about pickleball, probably not in the next one, but 2 Olympic cycles from now for sure. Pickleball will be there. High schools now are taking it on as a sport. Almost every college has pickleball as a club sport. It will become an NCAA sanctioned sport here in the very near future. So it's not a fad. It's not a Johnny come lately. It's an actual course correction in how people exercise and socialize.
What about some of the other racket sports? I know you mentioned racquetball and it coming and going, seeing an influx of paddle or padel or however people want to pronounce it. Obviously tennis still is big, but this is, some of them are getting a little nervous.
Mm-hmm.
From racket sports as a whole, any insights or, where you see things going, or if like padel has a big chance and now influx, or there's the merging of a lot of them, what's sort of the state of racket sports now as a whole and from your lens?
Yeah. And this is just, you're asking for my opinion, Andrew, and I'll give you my opinion, but it's just that these aren't facts now. These are opinions.
Mm-hmm.
I think Djokovic was just quoted here recently as saying, pickleball is a threat to tennis, and he sees that happening. And then ironically now, I just read an article, he's going to be participating in a pickleball game. So yeah, he's a smart man. He sees the future. So to be blunt, and I hope there's no haters out here, I'm just saying what I see. I think tennis is aging out, that the demographics, it is sort of waning as a sport. Padel is on a upward trajectory, but I would put that, and I think that's going to serve a market. Look, there's still racquetball players. And I put padel in a similar lane to racquetball, that it's very athletic, it's very intense, it's very fun. And for a lot of people, that's absolutely what they should be playing. I think the accessibility is a little harder because it takes more to actually build a padel court. So there's not as much accessibility. And I think if someone has any type of physical limitations or concerns, that would pretty much eliminate them. Where in pickleball, you can start at any point, but the beauty is you never max out. So people think, I know all of these out of shape people who play pickleball. So, they kind of think that reflects on the sport. You come to our club at 5:00 and you got some of our 20 and 30-year-olds playing. I'm telling you, they are world-class athletes that play the sport at a different level. So that's the beauty. You can still participate wherever you are.
Yeah. And even for me, it's pretty interesting. I mean, my trajectory is similar to yours. Played basically every sport growing up. Played Division I basketball.
Nice.
Then,
were you a shooting guard or point guard?
Yeah, shooting guard.
Nice.
And then now it's interesting of what sports I play, but it's about, we'll call it a third of golf, tennis, pickleball. Like that's sort of my stack right now. And it's just interesting to see like that, like pickleball run into my age where you're not seeing as much basketball. Like I'd rather go play pickleball or tennis or golf any day over basketball. And obviously I played a lot of it and wore it out, but definitely it is younger than a lot of people think.
Absolutely. I see the same thing. And for a while back, basketball was my thing, from a recreational standpoint. It kind of filled my competitive juices. But again, the intensity, the amount of times I jumped and landed on someone's foot and rolled my ankle, got someone's elbow in my cheek. I probably gave that up about a decade ago. And so golf, I picked up golf after our youngest child left the house because now I had the time for it. And as a quarterback, I feel like I got good hand-eye coordination. And Andrew, I would go out there sometimes and feel like I never touched a club before. The learning curve is so steep in golf. Pickleball, for most people, it's so intuitive. That's what's sort of alluring and intoxicating about it. In 5 minutes, you feel like you got it. Now, again, you never max out. You keep getting better, but you see that progression versus golf. More times than not, you feel like you went backwards.
Participation versus viewership from a pro model. Just curious your thoughts. I get a lot of heat on that one. I won't bias you before I answer it, but I'm curious from a more entertainment perspective versus, we'll call it the participation, where a lot of where you're building is at.
Yeah, I would put that on a personal standpoint. When I was very young, my dad would put golf on TV. It was the most painful thing in the world, right? It was like, nails on a chalkboard because I didn't play golf, didn't understand it. So I had no appreciation for it. The moment I did start playing golf, I watched these guys and say, holy smokes, you have no idea, babe, how tough that shot was. I think that's where we're at with pickleball. And it's sort of people who don't play and watch it, they don't fully understand. It's like people are playing patty cake at the net. It doesn't look like much. The moment you step on a court and you realize the finesse it takes to make that dink shot, just skim the net and drop dead on the other side, that's very artful. And so because the sport is so new and there's so many people that started at relatively the same time, the viewership's not as high because everyone's still figuring it out. That's almost never happened, not in my lifetime, because every sport has had a slow burn to
Right.
its success. So pickleball is very unique in that sense. So I think the viewership isn't where participation is, but it will be.
Yeah, I could see that.
What's your view on that?
It changes. I try to always, in everything from politics to anything, I try to sort of take a middle, like see both sides. I know it's tough with these algorithms in today's world on anything. Some days I think pickleball has a real chance to be viewership, but at least most days right now, I'm like, I'll play it and I like playing it, but I just don't really have an interest to watch it. And it sort of goes back to your learning curve of like, because it is easier and there's less barrier to entry to pickleball, that it feels like you're closer to a pro pickleball player. But if you watch Steph Curry or LeBron or, Tom Brady or whoever, it feels really far away, which is why you're enticed to watch. And so anyway, I don't know. We'll see. And then,
but Andrew, can I just say something? Because you're absolutely right. And I can see why you have that opinion, but keep in mind who you are. Consider the source. You're a former Division I athlete. So, you might have been teetering on playing in the league and all those things. The average person, I think that exact equation you just spelled out is absolutely true, but I think it has the opposite result. That when someone watches a LeBron James, they're like, yeah, he's awesome, but that's a different universe. That's a different existence than my world. I think someone thinking, man, if I really worked hard, I could maybe play professional pickleball. I think that entices them to watch because they think it's attainable, and maybe it is, but it's at least a chance. Whereas the average person, watching the NFL, NBA, there's no chance. I don't care how positive you are. It's just not going to happen. So it just depends on someone's psyche and their makeup. I think because you're in that sport, that might have jaded you just a little bit.
It's a good point. So Ace, where is Pickleball Kingdom as we close this out? What's next on the roadmap, the pipeline? Where do you see it going in 3 years? You got to your franchising goals and much more. So we'll just even go, where's the next 3? What's on the plate?
That might be my favorite question you asked today. It's blue ocean territory, brother. We're doing great in the United States. We are already the largest pickleball entity in terms of franchising in the world. But that's highly based in the United States. But we're now spreading our wings. We're probably going to be announcing some pretty major international deals in the very near future. That just floats my boat because, again, as an ambassador of the sport, I just believe the goodwill that this engenders, pulling people together. I just wish I found this sport when my kids were younger and still in the house, because it would have absolutely been our Friday night or Saturday afternoon family event to do together. It's giving people that health, both mentally and physically. So our brand, I put a charge out to our team that inside of 5 years, there will be a Pickleball Kingdom in every civilized country in the world. So that's the next step for Pickleball Kingdom.
Very cool. I just read Japan only has 20 pickleball courts or something crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's, like you said, there's a lot of blue ocean out there.
No doubt. It's funny whenever we have these conversations with potential franchisee and then we award them a franchise, they're like, Ace, you're not going to believe how popular pickleball is in my hometown. There are just no courts. And I say, I believe it because it's the same story everywhere. And I say, I've still never heard someone say pickleball is not popular where they are. But if and when I come across that, my response, I already know what I'm going to say. It's not because the community has rejected pickleball. They just haven't had the opportunity. They don't know what they don't know. So once we are able to give them a conduit to it, we create players in Pickleball Kingdom. We then have the path and a home for them to really build their journey within this great sport of ours.
Yeah. The only thing that stops me from, do I go play pickleball or tennis or golf tonight, is usually, the courts might be busy tonight on pickleball. I don't know if I want to go play and sit and wait. So that's usually the problem.
Andrew, that's the perfect commercial for us. So thank you for saying that. Come to a Pickleball Kingdom. You can reserve court 14 at 7:00. That's Andrew's court. So we solved that problem for you, man.
And I was number 14, so I don't know if you did a quick little Google search there, but that was slick.
I wish I could take credit for that. That's just meant to be.
I love it.